Hammurabi did not go far enough. Draco did not go far enough. I'm Pfizer did not go far, and it's not far enough anymore. It's not far enough.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to Burn Pile. So this episode's a little bit different. As you probably know, if you've listened to the podcast before, and if you're just joining for the first time, welcome. I might mention whatever big story is going on every week, but I usually don't. Because you're going to listen to, that story all week is what I think. Like, you're going to listen to, more famous people talk about that. You're going to be listening to the news on it. You don't need that story. I'm giving you like the weird stories. That's how I usually think about things. And the stories that just interest me, because usually I'm not, super interested in the really big story. The big story usually, to me, is like kind of psyop-y. Not always. Sometimes I'm just not interested in it. But for that reason, it's a week when some really huge, earth-shattering thing happened, and I talk about, some expose on some weird nothing, or some weird murder, or some stupid thing someone did. So this week's going to be a little different because I have to address the Charlie Kirk thing. So I live in a weird time zone. I live on the other side of the world from the United States. I woke up with my phone, some group chats, DMs on different platforms, my phone just full of stuff, and I had no idea what was going on. I looked at it. Basically, as soon as I saw the headline that Charlie Kirk was killed, I had within minutes, I had a DM in my inbox from someone who had the uncensored video. So that's how I found out. Now, full disclosure here, I'm not a Charlie Kirk guy. I'm very conservative, but I was never a Charlie Kirk kind of guy. If you've listened before, you've heard me talk about the Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro. And Charlie Kirk is one of those guys I kind of lumped in with all of them, rightly or wrongly. Maybe that was a mistake, but I always did. So I didn't like. I hate the pro-Israel thing. I despise the pro-Israel thing. I always have. Charlie Kirk. He went to campuses and did debate. I used to watch when Steven Crowder did the same thing. I kind of think Steven Crowder sucks ass. I've talked about that before, but yeah, I've definitely watched them before. I was pretty entertained. Charlie Kirk, I just never really watched his content, and to be honest, I certainly knew his name. I knew he was a major figure. I didn't realize how big he was. So now we're in a weird moment, because what I feared the most with the Trump administration was two different things. One was that it would be a repeat of the first administration, that he'd have all the wrong people around him somehow, and somehow we'd get neocon policies. And to some extent, we have gotten that. Now, we've gotten that with foreign policy. We're still involved in the war against Russia, where we're backing Ukraine. We're still deeply involved with Israel. I hate all of that. So on the international stage, it's just the neocon agenda, unfortunately. And I think it would have been as bad or worse under Biden or Harris. But nevertheless, we're still there. So that sucks. But on the domestic front, I'm going to give him points because the immigration crackdown is great. Radically expanding ICE, recruiting kind of Trump loyalists to work in ICE with the advertising and everything. That's great. Defunding NPR and PBS, even though it turned out that Doge was a bit of a bust. Trump did properly use Elon to kind of, hammer a lot of the funding for, the left wing industrial complex all around the world. We'll see how that holds, but I'm going to give him full marks for that. And I love that, so immigration, shutting down parts of the government I don't like. Could he go further? Yes, and I hope so. Which brings me to my next point. My next fear was that Trump would not go far enough. That he'd do everything right, but it wouldn't be enough. He wouldn't go far enough. And I really hope that he takes this moment and seizes it and does some things that are pretty extreme. Now, if you listen to this podcast, I don't really believe in democracy. As in, not that I don't think it's a proper idea. I believe it doesn't exist. If you read like James Burnham or something, it's not, you can't really run a country with democracy. So you end up with, an elite that's their own kind of, caste in society, and they have their own values and they don't represent the people, but you hope that they have the best interests of the people at heart. That happens in every society, not just ours. So the whole, we have to preserve these democratic norms and things, I don't believe in any of that, personally. Now, you might think that's extreme. You might think I'm being an edgelord. You might think I'm being an idiot or a fag. Be like, oh, but America's all about free. Yeah, okay. Well, go have gay sex then, because it's all about freedom, right? And like our big thing now is degenerated into we're exporting gay sex all over the world. The Taliban stones gay people. Like so we have to go to war with the Taliban. Like that's our whole thing now. Like that road doesn't lead anywhere good. I do like freedom. I do think Americans should have a lot of freedom. But I think it's time for Trump to clamp down on some things. I saw a lot of people on Twitter saying, well, there should be RICO charges against like Antifa. So Antifa is kind of this, it's this amorphous blob of lots of different tiny little clubs and cells. Some of them are, mostly harmless groups of, kids saying edgy jokes on Discord. Others probably are violently organizing, right? But anything that has Antifa in its name, I don't really care what a judge says. You should be in there. You should be in there. You should be arresting people. You should be changing the people's lives who are in there. Now, should a 15-year-old kid who made an edgelord joke be doing prison time if he's in an Antifa Discord server? No, but I would want to remind you that the assassination attempt against that governor that happened a few years ago was totally made up. It was like 8 FBI agents and like 3, kids. I think some of them were teens or just out of their teens, were basically baited into it. And I'll believe Trump has done a good job when we've turned the tables, and the culture in the FBI is that they wouldn't really go after, like, I think that was like a church youth group that went wrong. They paid the older guys that the young guys looked up to in the church youth group to bait them into committing a, so-called right-wing crime. But if the culture were such in the FBI that it was the other way around, so that all the leftist organizations were, were compromised up and down with our people, and we were doing these mass arrests, that would be great. I also think Trump should arrest judges who don't do what he wants. I'd be okay with him suspending the Constitution, not allowing free elections in the midterms. I think he should do all those things. I think that would be good. I know that's extremely extreme. I know most people listening probably don't agree. Although, shout out to the BitChute bros. I bet the BitChute guys do. But I could see why you wouldn't agree with that. I do think he needs to go after media companies in a big way. And to be fair to him, he's already doing that. But I think there should be compilations of every questionable thing that the media said, leading up to this assassination. And he should make the most of this opportunity to seize power. Um, that's the most important thing right now, is seizing power. Trump's old. He's not going to live forever. I was saying from before this latest round of him looking pretty sick and disappearing for a few days and having his face drooping, that I think he's not going to survive through this term due to natural causes, probably natural causes, but who knows? Who knows if he's being poisoned or whatever? God knows, right? But he needs to. JD Vance, who I like just fine. I don't really hate Peter Thiel. I know he's Peter Thiel's guy. I'm in the camp that says it takes, a secretive cabal to overthrow a secretive cabal, and that's, Peter Thiel is the face of that. I think JD Vance is fine. He does not have the energy and the political clout of Trump, and Trump needs to use it to do dramatic things, So this Charlie Kirk assassination, it's an opportunity to do those things. It's an opportunity to take power in a big, meaningful way. Let the New York Times kvetch all they want. CNN needs to be shut down. There are probably ways to do that, legal and extra legal. I don't really believe in legality when we're talking about power, and neither does the other side, even if they say that. A little more about the assassination. The kind of industrial cope complex on the left with this. I mean, we're fresh off a murder where a tranny freak went into a church and murdered children. This guy, they found on the bullet casings clear Antifa messaging, like, hey, fascist, catch this. The amount of cope that I saw, mostly in comment sections on mainstream news stories and on Twitter, like on the New York Times, in the comment section where they were revealing information about him, I think the top comment was saying, oh, so it wasn't a transgender person. It was a conservative. It was a white conservative male from Utah who got radicalized. And then another comment was saying, oh, he wasn't far right enough, so he got assassinated. This was like a far right assassination. When in the text of the article itself, it said that the gun casing said, hey, fascist, catch. Right? So he was clearly, from the beginning, everyone knew he was an Antifa guy. And there are people who just live in another world where left wing means good and right wing means bad. So if something bad happened, therefore it must be right wing, no matter what. Now it's coming out that he was living with a transgender boyfriend who was pretending to be a girl. I don't know. Like I said, I live in a weird time zone, so I just woke up and saw that headline. Now, the really annoying thing about I don't even know if I want to use the word the left, whatever you want to call them, whatever this thing is that exists, this enemy of existence we have. If you've listened to this podcast before, you know that I like Andrew Callahan and I like Channel 5, right? Channel 5 is his YouTube channel and he interviews people. So Charlie Kirk was in the middle of a debate in a college campus when he got shot, and he was taking a question from an audience member. And that audience member was so the last person to kind of speak to Charlie Kirk, which is on camera, is this audience member, and he got interviewed by Channel 5. And he had asked this question. He said it was something like, how many, you said there's like an epidemic of transgender violence, but do you know how many mass shootings there were and how many were transgender? And Charlie Kirk says, well, how many mass shootings there were if you count or if you don't count gang violence, because that's a thing that they do. They take inner city violence with black criminals, and they kind of lump it into mass shootings, and then they throw off the mass shootings numbers. That's a big thing they always do. So they'll be like, there were 6 million mass shootings, always a suspicious number, 6 million. There are 6 million mass shootings, and that's why we have to take all the guns. That's a big trick that they do. So Charlie was aware of that. So he says, with or without, gang violence being counted. And this guy opens his mouth to respond, and then the shot goes off and kills Charlie. So that guy was being interviewed on Channel 5. So that guy, he does this interview. I think the whole YouTube video is like 20 minutes or so. But he kind of explains the point he was making, and this isn't really against him. From that video, you can tell he's a nice, normal, soft-spoken guy. He didn't do anything violent. He was just there asking a question. He expressed remorse for Charlie dying. He said he was scheduled to do a Jubilee video with Charlie, and that he was kind of horrified by what happened. So it's nothing against this guy personally. But he says, so he goes in and he says he did the math, and like, of all the mass shootings that there have been, only this really small number have been transgender people. And that was the point he was going to make to Charlie, but Charlie died before he could do it. But they go into that point. And they're like, here's what I hate about the left. I'll just use that term, the left. Their unbelievable arrogance, their inability to see their own weaknesses and their own wrongs. They have this kind of unshakable faith that's absolutely unreal, this faith in themselves and in their ideas. So they think that as he was answering a question about gun violence and he got killed by gun violence, that their point about gun control is therefore ironically proven correct. And the irony is all, against Charlie. They don't see that as one of them is making a point that transgender violence is no big deal, and he opens his mouth to respond, he gets murdered by someone with a trans partner. Like, yeah, okay, it's not this slam dunk where he gets murdered by a trans person, but he gets murdered by someone with a transgender lover while he's trying to answer the question. The irony is on the left-wing side saying, what are you talking about? There isn't transgender violence. But you don't really see that for two reasons. The first is the people who are good enough writers and presenters to present irony like that and the people who are looking for something like that, some kind of poetic justice, are all in the mainstream sphere, are all on the left side. So the New York Times would write very eloquently about the irony of the gun violence thing. But Breitbart is retarded, and they would never write eloquently about anything, but they certainly wouldn't write eloquently about, the irony of him talking about transgender violence and getting murdered this way. At least they haven't yet, that I've seen. All right, so let's, I had a bunch of things planned. I don't think I'm going to do Charlie the whole time, but let's look at least at this headline that I saw when I woke up today. And that's New York Post. Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin, Tyler Robinson, lived with transgender partner. Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin, Tyler Robinson, was living with a transgender partner who was in the process of transitioning from male to female, a law enforcement source confirmed to the Post Saturday. That individual, who has yet to be publicly identified by the authorities, is now fully cooperating with the FBI on its investigation into the fatal shooting of the conservative activist, the source said. The relationship was first reported by Fox News' Brooke Singman. According to public records, Lance Twiggs, 22, resided at the same address where Robinson lived. A relative of Twiggs confirmed to the Post Saturday that, yes, they were roommates. Mom, Dad, this is my roommate. Just this guy I know. Don't worry. I'm living with a guy. We're just roommates for college. Don't worry. Don't worry about anything. I'm still a good Mormon boy, just got a college roommate who's a guy. That's all. The family member, who asked not to be identified, said Twiggs was the quote, black sheep of their St. George, Utah family, but declined to speculate on a romantic relationship between the two men. What is up with the New York Post's bigotry here? The two men? Excuse me. She said she didn't know her relative's politics or whether Twiggs was transitioning to become a woman, but added that it wouldn't surprise her. The family member said, "Can you imagine if this wasn't true, though? Like, what if this is not true at all? It would be funnier if I'm totally wrong and this is like a nasty, hateful thing. Like, what if you're just like a slightly effeminate man, but like a normal guy, but you're like not a tough guy or whatever, and you're like your traditionally masculine Utah Mormon family like calls you the black sheep and thinks you're gay because like you're like sipping lattes and reading the Paris Review and you don't like you're not like watching the football game with them, so they're always just like they really hate you and they think you're gay, and then like you go off to college and you have a roommate and it just happens to be this guy, and then like he murders someone and you like cooperate with the FBI and everything, and then like fucking Fox News is like interviewing your family and they're like, yeah, he's a huge fag. I think he's probably like transitioning to be a woman. That's what would happen to me. I mean, I'm masculine, but in a disgusting way. I'm not masculine in the sense that I have like big muscles or anything cool. I'm masculine in the sense that I could never pass. But like other than that, like personality wise, this could be like my family. They're like, yeah, he kind of. They're like, so hi, I'm calling about your nephew. Did you know that he was a roommate of the Charlie Kirk killer? Oh yeah, really? Yeah, he was always a huge faggot like that. He was kind of the black sheep, kind of a pussy. I bet he's. Yeah, well, do you know anything about him? Is there a transgender connect? Huh? What'd you say? Transgender? Yeah, I bet he is Yeah, I bet he is transitioning. I bet he is. I heard he voted Democrat once. I bet he is transitioning. He is a huge cuck like that. That would be so much funnier. I actually hope that that's true. I hope my whole point about the irony of being killed by someone with a transgender lover, I hope I'm completely wrong on that. And it's totally just a hateful Mormon family. It'd be so much better. The family member said she knew Twiggs was brought in for questioning by police. The Post observed Saturday that no one was at the $1,800 per month townhouse Robinson and Twiggs were believed to have shared. A neighbor claimed 2 weeks ago several people driving cars with out-of-state plates were seen going in and out. They did not give off a good vibe, the neighbor said. Hey, it's looking more and more like what I said. His like book club came over there and didn't look Mormon enough. They did not give off a good vibe. They all looked like huge fags to me. Kirk, 31, was struck in the neck, blah, blah, blah. Do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years? Asked attendee Hunter Kozak. That's the guy. That's exactly what I was talking about. That's the guy who got the last question in, who was on the Channel 5 YouTube video. Too many, Kirk responded. Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years? Kozak followed up. Counting or not counting gang violence? And then he was shot. As a self-professed evangelical Christian, Kirk criticized the goals of the LGBTQ agenda, expressed opposition to same-sex. Okay, blah, 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 blah. All right. You know what I'm saying. Now, Wizard Cat, didn't the New York Post just do what you said no outlet would do? Hey, shut the fuck up. I'm a genius and I thought of this first. I'm the only one who's ever thought. No, I just mean like the general feeling out there won't be that it's this profound irony, as it was with the copium I saw on the left about gun rights or whatever. You know who pissed me off the most? Who I hate the most is Stephen King. And I apologize if you like Stephen King. Stephen King is the shittiest thing that really cool people seem to like. Lots of cool people love Stephen King. Hey, that's fine. I really like The Shining. I like Kubrick movies. I read the book. It's not as impressive as the movie, obviously, because Kubrick is an actual artist and Stephen King is not. So Stephen King said he tweeted, Charlie Kirk believes in stoning gay people to death, so you can't feel bad about him getting killed like this. Words to that effect. Charlie never said gays should get stoned to death. He was probably thinking of Wizard Cat on this podcast. And then he gave like some kind of half apology or whatever. Um, what pisses me off a lot about him is kind of this like just the way boomers mythologize themselves. Like you can tell he's got this really strong idea of himself and this image he has out there. Like he named his son. This is the most cringe faggoty thing in the world. He named his son after like some famous like labor activist. This like, multi-millionaire super famous guy. Like it's not enough that he's wildly successful. He wants the world to know what a good person he is. But I care about working people, even though my books just constantly shit on working men, because I had a horrible relationship with the grown men in my life when I was a kid. Um, it just sucks. He fucking sucks. Everything about him sucks my ass. In his book on writing, which I also read, uh, it's it's not really a writing guide. It's like an autobiography mostly. He wrote about how he mentioned like, oh, he does this thing. There's this thing. It's a boomer thing. I guess it's a human thing. He admits to like the bad things in himself. Like I'm not sure if he really got into it on writing. It's been a long time since I read it. But talking about like everybody knows Stephen King had like severe addiction issues. I think cocaine and alcohol. And like so he openly admits to all of those and has like kind of crazy stories out there about all those. Like he doesn't remember writing Cujo because he was on so much cocaine or drinking so much or whatever. And it's like, it's kind of it's like admitting your fault, but in like a cool way. It's like, listen to how badass this thing I did. I can't believe I'm alive. But then when it comes to other things, like there's a line that always stuck out to me where he was talking about his wife, and he says, "Well, my wife and I are both naturally monogamous," and it's the kind of thing where like, okay, he was a wild man, he did all these things, he was, didn't treat people right, he was doing drugs, but you know he was always devoted to his wife. Like it's a highly like sympathetic thing, And Stephen King, he's not a writer that I admire, but he is a writer, right? And he knows how to get sympathy where it's like I'll tell them all this crazy stuff, but I'm devoted to my wife. I'm a devoted guy. I was listening to the Soft White Underbelly just a few weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, and they had this sex trafficking victim on there, and she mentioned that when she was working strip clubs and then from there doing prostitution, that she met Stephen King. And here's the problem: I never believed that this low impulse control drug addict Stephen King was devoted to his wife. I never believed that for a second because I'm a man and I'm not retarded, and I like to think I know when someone is tricking me. And I don't always. Trump in Israel. But, I can smell something bad. And Stephen King has the worst vibes of all time. So I do believe that he probably was meeting that human trafficking victim for sex. Now, he didn't know she was a human trafficking victim. He was going to a strip club. Um, but I would be shocked if that weren't true. And so he's this totally fake piece of shit. he was a drug addict. You know, he lies, he manipulates, and he has the arrogance to go on Twitter and slam dunk on a guy who just got shot in the neck. And it's like, look, don't get me wrong. As you know, I like I've mentioned before, I love Welbeck, the French writer. He's not a good guy either. But he doesn't fucking say he's a good guy. Just don't go out there and pretend. The Stephen King thing really pissed me off. I hate that guy. I mean, how old is he? Let's look up how old he is. Let's see his age. Maybe we'll have something to celebrate soon.
Oh, but you made a joke about somebody dying just like he did.
Shut up. Don't be gay. He's 77. Damn. He's probably going to live forever. Shit. All right. Well, is that enough about Kirk? Can't make the whole episode about Kirk, right? Can't just go down the list of enemies I have. Oh, okay. One more thing we got to say about Kirk. The Kash Patel press conference. Good Lord. I'll play it. You've probably heard it already. I'm going to play it. It's only a 14-second clip. It's worth playing. I'm going to play it.
Lastly, to my friend Charlie Kirk. Rest now, brother. We have the watch. And I'll see you in Valhalla.
What? What the fuck is Kash Patel talking about? So Kash Patel, I guess he's thinking like, all right, well, Charlie is a very famous Christian. I'm not a Christian. I'm a Hindu. What can I say about his death? Do you think he had did he have a draft on his desk that was like, you know, like, I'll see you in Kali, judge's soul is on the wheel of samsara, or like whatever the fuck? I mean, I don't know anything about Hinduism. That was a word salad. I don't know what any of that means. I don't actually think that's what the Hindu afterlife is. But did he have some really weird like first draft? Like you know, Charlie, I'll see you in the next incarnation, brother. And something like that. And then someone was like, Kash, you can't. His IDF girlfriend, his Mossad agent, super hot girlfriend, was like, Kash, you can't do that. Charlie was a Christian. You have to say something Christian. And Kash is like, but everybody knows I'm not a Christian. So what am I going to do? And they're like, well, let's just do don't do a Christian one because people will be mad. But do something white coded. He's like, ChatGPT, what's a white coded afterlife that has nothing to do with Christianity? And ChatGPT tells him Valhalla. He's like, oh yeah, perfect. See ya in Valhalla, brother. So weird. Such a weird thing. Kash really does seem kind of incompetent. I mean, he went on Rogan, and they talked about the Epstein files came out. Elon was tweeting about the Epstein files, and Kash said something like above my pay grade or whatever. You're like, you're the head of the FBI. What are you talking about? Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Whoa, kind of above my pay grade, but he was my friend. We have the watch. See ya in Valhalla, brother. What? What? What a weird thing to say. Indians are weird. You know, I've said some mean things about India. Every Indian guy I've met personally, I've quite liked, and you know how I feel about Usha Vance. I think she's fantastic. But God, this really is truly a weird thing to say. What a weird thing to say. See you in Valhalla, brother. All right. Well, let's move on to something else then. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, more Charlie Kirk stuff. Trump escalates attacks on political opponents after Charlie Kirk's killing. Yeah, but not enough. That was my whole point. I did like, now some of the indications are good. They said, like, what do you think about extremist violence, right and left? And he's like, well, the right wing stuff is no big deal. It actually kicks ass. The left wing stuff is gay. All right, I guess I'll go through some of these. Okay. Hasan Piker. So New York Times also interviewed Hasan Piker after Charlie's death, being like, well, you're a young hip streamer type guy. What do you think about what happened? And Hasan's like, oh yeah, violence is bad, but Charlie was an extremist, but still he shouldn't, exactly the kind of bullshit you'd think you'd hear. But let's see, this is Viral News NYC, some cringe retarded Twitter account has this clip of Hasan. I don't know from when it was, but of him saying some kind of violent stuff. Actually, this clip is 2 minutes and 19 seconds long. It's like a compilation of Hasan saying kind of fucked up stuff. I thought most of it, without context, you couldn't really say was that bad. But this, I've queued up this part, just 20 seconds I'm going to play, where he does sound quite violent. All right, let's listen to this.
Poor people that they can afford housing in Berkeley. I don't know how that works.
My understanding is that the property owners who have properties there choose just not to rent it at all.
Yeah, kill them. Kill those motherfuckers and murder those motherfuckers in the street. Let the streets soak in their fucking red capitalist blood.
Let the streets fucking soak in their red capitalist blood. Okay, and now, New York Times, Hasan Piker on Charlie Kirk. The two men had very different politics, but as a fellow star of a new political media class, the left-wing streamer had a personal reaction to Mr. Kirk's assassination. And they've got this very serious-looking photo of him, and down here they're talking. And it's all just like, hey, we were like friendly opponents is kind of like the angle of this thing. Well, not quite that. I mean, he does say like, well, Charlie said extreme things, but like, okay, here's a great quote. Here's a funny quote. The interviewer asks, "It makes me wonder if there's some kind of free-floating anger or sense of meaninglessness or helplessness among young men. I wonder whether that's something you see." And here's Hasan Piker's answer. Yes and no. I try to redirect people's anger and resentment to systemic problems because I'm a leftist, I'm a Marxist, I'm a socialist, and therefore I believe that everything still comes back to material conditions. And that's what people's anger and resentment are born out of, deteriorating material conditions and hopelessness that is instilled upon them because they don't see a hopeful future. Okay. I try to redirect people's anger and resentment to systemic problems. That's what he said. Kill the capitalists, make the streets run red with their blood. That's what he actually means. So, by the way, if God forbid Hasan Piker was the one assassinated in public during a speaking tour, do you think the New York Times would have Charlie Kirk interviewed? I mean, I'm certain you can find clips of Charlie Kirk and anyone who streams for hours a day. I'm certain you can find clips of them saying stuff that's, probably pretty close to as bad as what Hasan just said there. But would it go the other way? Would a left-wing outlet like the New York Times really interview a right-wing streamer in reaction to a left-wing assassination? Probably not, right? Probably not, which is why they should all be arrested. Okay, well, we've got 20 minutes left. Like I said, it can't all be about Charlie. I I do have other stuff prepared. Let's change gears a little bit. Here's something a little funny. Denmark forced contraception on Greenlandic girls, a scathing report confirms. Now, why is this funny? Who cares about Greenland? Now, if you remember, the US, we were all set to invade Greenland. We were going to annex them. We were going to take them. Trump wants Greenland. I want Greenland. Every patriotic American wants an invasion of Greenland. But, it kind of fell through. We got distracted with other things. We're blowing up Venezuelan boats. We were going to go north. Instead, we're going to go south. We're having fun, just having adventures. But if you recall, I don't think I mentioned this on the podcast, but you can kind of read between the lines with some things. There was an incident where the U.S. ambassador to Denmark got called in, I believe this was last month, for a dressing down because Denmark suspects that the U.S. has intelligence, like agitators, in Greenland, agitating for an anti-Denmark government, anti-Danish government kind of movement. I think there could be the ultimate goal, something like that would be like an independence referendum. And if Greenland votes to go independent, that opens the door for the U.S. to come in, and Denmark loses Greenland. So apparently this was happening behind the scenes, and Denmark somehow got wind of it. So they called in the U.S. ambassador and they said, "You're a very naughty boy. We're your ally." Blah 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 blah. And I thought, wow, they really suck ass. Or it's just that the New York Times is against them and is reporting on this where normally they wouldn't. This kind of foreign operation. But now I think maybe the New York Times is playing ball, because this is a story that's clearly part of an anti-Danish campaign. Having a story out there like this is definitely, it's meant to rile up, the native people of Greenland against their Danish oppressors. All right, let's read a little bit. Danish doctors inserted intrauterine devices into thousands of women and girls in Greenland, often without their consent or knowledge, a scandal that has reinforced a legacy of colonial abuses. The findings were in a scathing report released Tuesday on Denmark's past policy of forcing contraception on women and girls in Greenland, a practice that Danish officials now admit was wrong. Okay, so I think, the U.S., and this, I don't know how long this report was cooking, but I bet that the Biden administration also had eyes on Greenland. And, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the kind of thing that USAID would fund. And, if it funds stuff like this, I'm all for it. You fund some, Truth and Reconciliation, Truth and Justice, Medical Justice Committee, through the grant for women's rights or whatever, and it gives money all over the world. One of the things it gives money to is this commission, this health commission or whatever, and these all have really gay fake names. And then the health commission goes after this thing that actually happened, which was the Danish government saying, God, these native Greenland subhumans are breeding too much. We need to, we need to shove up devices in their vaginas that make them not have babies anymore, which actually happened. But no one would care about that. And, the U.S. taxpayers' money shouldn't go to worrying about that unless we've got an angle, and we do, which is, hey, fuck these Danes. Come over to the winning team. Look what they did. Look what they did to your pussies in the 70s. If USAID was being used that way, then I'm all for it. And I bet there were lots of angles on Greenland that were at least considered in the Biden administration and probably before that. And Trump got some declassified files on it and was like, ooh, Well, why don't we just go against that aggressive? You're doing some clandestine operation. I'll just go on CNN and say I want it. I'll just say I want to take over Greenland. And this is the art of the deal. And then, he got pushed back for that. So he's like, okay, just do whatever Biden was going to do. The fund the pussy report or whatever about how they shoved shit up their vaginas. And okay, I know what an IUD is. All right, I'm not. Actually, I'm an incel. I don't know what an IUD is. I've never heard of it. It's just funnier to say it this way. Okay. All right, so that was fun. Maybe we will get Greenland. I hope so. I do think every male incel, every guy who's considering, every young Mormon boy from Utah who's 22 and is considering just, he's really sexually frustrated, so he's just going to start having sex with his male roommate and make him take HRT and be trans. And then that's going to send him on a spiral where he gets really into trans rights. I think you need to take every young man like that and force them to have a Kalalit wife from Greenland. You're going to say, hey, look, you did your 2 years of missionary service for the Mormon Church. You did great. Here you are in college. Listen, I'm from Washington. I'm from D.C. Listen. I've come here to Utah to let you know. We found out you don't have a girlfriend right now. Now listen. Being a citizen of a country, there are privileges, there are rights, there are also duties. Okay? There are Kalalit women in Greenland who don't have husbands, they don't have any children. And here you are doing what in Utah with no girlfriend? So listen, we can do this the nice way, where you're going to come with me, and we're going to fly to Greenland. We're going to give you a nice little acreage. You're expected to have 3 children over the next 6 years. You're expected to meet these farming quotas. This is your duty to the state. You should be happy to do this for us. That's the nice way. Okay? The not so nice way is me and Kash Patel put a bag over your head and we take you to Valhalla right now. I don't even know what I'm saying. All right. Sorry about that. Okay, let's see what other gay bullshit I had prepared here. Do media organizations even want cultural criticism? Boring. That sucks. Don't talk about the books you're reading. That's my note to myself. No one cares about the books you're reading. The job market is hell. Young people are using ChatGPT to write their applications. HR is using AI to read them. No one is getting hired, says The Atlantic. Boring. Who cares? Don't get a job, get a transgender girlfriend, and do political extremism. All right, here we go. Here's something better. Charlie Sheen revealed in his new documentary that he smoked so much crack during his public meltdown that it literally turned him gay. Thank you. So Charlie Sheen was actually on Rogan, probably the first Rogan I've listened to in the last few weeks. I don't listen to that much Rogan now, but I saw Charlie Sheen was on, so I listened to that. Interesting guy. He didn't get into the gay stuff on Rogan as far as I remember, but let's see. Charlie Sheen says he started having sex with men while on crack and says it's fucking liberating to finally talk about it. This is a tweet from Variety embedded in the article. Here's a quote directly from Charlie. Oh, can I get there? Okay. Quote from Charlie, crack is what started it. That's where it was born or sparked. And in whatever chunks of time that I was off the pipe, trying to navigate that, trying to come to terms with it, where did that come from? Why did that happen? And then just finally being like, so what? So what? Some of it was weird. A lot of it was fucking fun. And life goes on, he told Good Morning America. Now, that's an interesting reaction to have to someone who became HIV positive in this time. What's weird is that okay, here's the thing. And I believe I mentioned this before, so my apologies if you've heard this rant before. When I was growing up, we got a sex ed in New Jersey, I believe starting like 5th or 6th grade, and we had to watch like videos about like HIV and like how you're going to get HIV. Like if you have sex, if you're looking at like women in bikinis and jerking off at home and you're like a straight 11-year-old boy, you're going to get HIV from doing that. Like HIV is just in the air, and if you have sex, that's going to happen. It wasn't until I was a grown man that I found out how tiny the chance of getting HIV is for heterosexual men. It's minuscule. So this completely blew my mind, where I could hardly believe it. I didn't think this was true when I first read it until I looked into it. If you're a heterosexual man and you have vaginal sex with a woman who is HIV positive with no protection, so just full on raw dog, an HIV positive woman, vaginal sex in the pussy, you cream pie her, right? The chances of you contracting HIV are 1 in 1,000. Right? So in order to get HIV from heterosexual sex, you'd have to line up 1,000 HIV positive women. You'd have to have sex with a new one with no condom every day. Right? So if you're going to sleep with one woman a day, it's going to take you 3 years to do this. Sex with a new HIV positive woman with no condom every day for 3 years. And then you'll get HIV positive, the odds are. Right? So once you learn that, and then you're like, you hear about like Magic Johnson. And Magic Johnson's like, yeah, well, I was having sex with a new woman in every city every night, the life of a famous basketball player. And it's like, so were you having unprotected sex with these women every time? You were? Okay. And you're sleeping with what? How many women? How many days of the year are there? Let's say he was sleeping with, 200 women a year. And you can say, well, in 5 years, that's 1,000 women. But that 1,000 women number is only if they're all HIV positive, which they're not. Most women are not HIV positive, even prostitutes. So the numbers make no sense. So every celebrity who gets HIV, unless it was a blood transfusion or something, sharing needles or something, they were having gay sex. So I didn't need this documentary to come out that told me that Charlie Sheen was having sex with men. As soon as they said he was HIV positive, that's the same as saying he was having sex with men. I mean, that is pretty brutal, especially if you were like raised with the sex education I got, where they said, no, it's not a gay thing. Which they pretty much explicitly said that. I remember like watching a video that made me very uncomfortable because I was a sheltered Christian, like 10 or 11-year-old. And we watched this video where they talked about like AIDS, had like claymation or whatever. And it specifically said that like, yeah, people used to say that only gay men got AIDS, but that's not true. It like said that in the video. And I was like, what's a gay person? Why does everyone look sick? This is what Trump needs to change. We need a total takeover of the culture from top to bottom, so that 11-year-olds aren't watching propaganda videos about how the plague that God placed on degenerate homosexuals having sex with having orgies in shipping containers in San Francisco in like 1979 is going to affect like normal people. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's clearly you know, you hear about the shipping container orgies and the insane degenerate sex. Every gay guy you talk to, well, I mean, now they're like through the filter, so they're not as gay. But everything you read about like his like pre-AIDS gays in like in San Francisco and in like gay hubs, it's like it's they're like these hellish like orgies. And you read about that, and here's the thing that pisses me off. I've talked to people who've read those things who are also conservative, and they're like, yeah, it's like it's shocking and everything. And then they're still they still don't believe in God. I mean, come on. Come on. It's I mean, I'm not saying you should delight in other people's suffering. I know that's not a very Christian thing, and I know I'm not the best Christian or anything. But yeah, I don't delight in it. I don't think you know, I have my own sins, and I hope I get grace for them, and I hope I'm not inflicted by a plague for them. I have my own things that are disgusting about me. You know, I hope I get mercy. You know, I know gay people. I certainly hope nothing bad happens to them. But you read about HIV, and you read about like what was going on pre-HIV, and the only possible conclusion is to be like, oh, the Christian God is real. Right? I mean, that's the only conclusion I could come up with. That's what it seems like to me. I had one more story here. I guess we won't go deep with this one. Migrant children lost under the, I think this says, oh, why is it cut off? Migrant children lost under the Biden administration found dead or working as sex slaves. After an estimated 233,000 children who crossed the U.S.-Mexico border alone during President Joe Biden's tenure were lost, law enforcement has started to locate them, only to learn of the horrors they faced. Since March, the Trump administration has tracked down 22,638 kids, finding some in deplorable conditions, dead, and others being used as sex slaves, officials told Fox News. We found children who have been raped. John Fabricatore, HHS Office of Refugee Resettlement Senior Advisor, told the network. We're talking about debt bondage, where children are being made to work off debt, trafficking debt. We're talking about children that were brought into situations and then threatened like sexual slaves. At least 27 of those lost children have been confirmed dead, with causes of death ranging from murder, suicide, car accidents, or drug overdoses. Children are in horrific environments, just environments that they should not be in, where the sponsor is a heroin dealer and that child winds up dying of a heroin overdose, explained Fabricatore. But I thought that the Trump administration was cruel because they had kids in cages. Remember kids in cages at the border? They would always say that. And that's cruel, right? You're leaving the kid in a cage. That kid should be with his pimp. How are we going to keep the entertainment flowing to the elite DC orgies where we all get HIV? If you keep these kids in cages, then they can't come to my house. All right. Okay, everybody. I was never a fan, but rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. Check out burnpile.vip if you haven't signed up yet. And I will see you next time.
Hammurabi, did not go far enough. Draco, did not go far enough. I'm Faisy, did not go far and it's not far enough anymore. It's not far enough.